What's up, Chad? You're the first caller.
Hey Bart, thanks for taking the call today.
You got it, buddy. Chad here, if I remember correctly, has a hand that's really going to demonstrate, I think, one of the cornerstones of Crush Live Poker. I know it's a concept that I have sort of made up, which is called Fifth Street Chicken, if I remember that correctly, Chad. So, what do we got here for a setup here on this particular hand?
Yeah, so we got a 1-2 game here. Max buy-in is 400, and we're at 395 effective.
Okay, so not a super like nosebleed game, but 395 effective. Okay,
Yeah, and we're playing eight-handed.
okay.
So I raise it up to $15, which is my standard for this table. I kind of size up like you always advise, whatever people are willing to call. So I bet 15 in middle position, and
Okay.
I've got King of Spades and Queen of Clubs.
Okay, so open to 15, standard open, even though it looks like it's 7.5x, but it's 1-2 from mid position, king, queen off. Okay.
Yep, and we got the low jack, the cutoff, and the small blind all call.
Low jack cutoff, small blind call. So one, two, three, four ways, probably like maybe 55 after the drop or something like that. Right?
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
55. Yep.
Yep.
Flop is jack of diamonds,
Mm-hmm.
two of spades,
Mm-hmm.
four of diamonds.
Jack of diamonds, two of spades, four of diamonds here with king, queen off, no diamonds. So kind of a whiff here. I mean, if I had a really, really good image here, I was just talking about like CBet Bluffing Matrix, another sort of cornerstone in our coursework, looking at, especially at the low stakes, right? CBet Bluffing Matrix is sort of a game plan matrix of what are the things you want to look at when you're considering CBet bluffing post flop. When you've missed, what are you looking at here? And Chad, I know you've been with me for a long time. So what's the number one factor in the CBet bluffing matrix?
Number one factor is number of players.
Yes,
And
sir.
so I just thought there's no way I can stab at this. And we got a bunch of calling stations probably. So I just thought, I'm going to give up unless I improve.
Yeah, I mean, it's not you can see bet into three people sometimes. I think, but it's one of these times where the board really has to be like really not connected. You've got to have a fairly good image. You could make a case, like if I was winning in a session where I might see bet Jack Deuce 4 here with King Queen. I'd like to have like it suited with a backdoor, just because. And really the most top pair dynamic boards I look at is a little bit lower, like a 9 Deuce 4, just because like if someone doesn't flop a set, there really shouldn't be any two pair out there, and usually top pair will not remain the same by the river. With a jack, it's probably maybe what 50. Well, you've got a king and a queen in your hand, so maybe I don't know 40% that some overcard flips up. But in general, I would be checking here. I mean, I got no problem with that. Hero checks, okay.
Yeah, if I had a backdoor, I might consider it.
Yep.
But anyway, so we move on to the
So
turn
everybody,
here.
so it just gets checked through.
Just gets right check through.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're still
Okay.
four-way.
Yep.
So moving to the turn here, it's the Queen of Spades.
Okay, so you hit top pair on here on the turn. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm happy with that. Small blind checks. I bet $40 into 55.
Okay.
Low jack folds. Cutoff raises to 120, which surprised me. And small blind folded, and I called.
So bet 40. Again, yeah, I mean, it's like seems kind of on the larger side, but again, it's like one of these things. The only thing I would say here is that when everyone checks through on the flop, and again, positional awareness, another key thing with hand rating, because you've got two people that have checked behind you after you were the pre-flop raiser, chances are they don't have a jack. The small blind could have a jack because he was naturally checking to you, and then an overcard fell. This is
Right.
This is different than if you were last on the flop, where okay, well, everybody just checks to you naturally. They can still all have Jack X if you were in position. But here with those guys checking behind, probably not. So, you want to, if you don't think those two guys have a Jack, it's really hard for them to call here on the turn. So you're kind of either targeting the small blind and obviously like a weaker queen. But, queen, I mean, you're really only beating like queen 10, queen 9. So it's interesting. I mean, a backdoor spades come out there and obviously there's Broadway gut shots. I'm never like, not a big fan of sort of going for the sizing at the small six. It's just a little consideration. I might have just gone just a tad smaller, but okay. So you go. So you
Yeah, I thought I would maybe target a worse queen or maybe a flush draw like a diamond draw or something, or even I guess the spades now and then or a gut shot even. People call pretty loose, but I get your point. Maybe a little bit lower would be more appropriate.
Now it's interesting though because there's a guy in chat here, Luke Rogers, saying fold, fold, fold. But the reason why, a lot of times, a raise on the turn at low stakes is usually indicative of better than one pair, but this one's a little bit different, right? Because we just said that Queen Jack's probably not going to be checking behind, right, from a cutoff. So he doesn't really have a ton of Queen Jack. Could he have slow played deuces and fours? Yes, but those are pretty much the only things. And this is where I sort of bring up the whole thing like Fifth Street Chicken. Like, you're getting turn pot odds here. Now, what are turn pot odds here? You're betting 40 into 55. The guy goes up to 120. So the pot now is like, what, 215, and it's 80 for you to call. So you're getting maybe 2.5 to 3 to 1 here. And the way sometimes I look at this is like, you can call, and if you think it will go check, check more than 1 out of 4 times, then you certainly can continue. Obviously, too, like if somehow, you were behind a 2 pair here, you have a little bit of, equity also to improve as well. So, I mean, I'm not folding yet. I think I would call like you do. Hero calls, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
So now the pot's 295, and this is where we're going to get into what I was talking about which is Fifth Street Chicken. I actually don't remember the river, but the whole concept of Fifth Street Chicken is like, if the river comes out a brick, like a 7, and you check and the guy bets again, can you just fold based upon the fact that it looks like, you're calling?
Right. Yeah, so the river came out a 6 of hearts, which I sort of more or less considered a brick. I was looking for flushes coming in or maybe a higher gut shot and that type of thing. So anyways, I checked and the cutoff shoved for the remaining 260.
So cutoff shoves 260. I really like this hand because it's nice and concise. It's a level that people can really relate to, that people are playing a lot about, and it kind of brings up sort of like live patterns. And somebody in the live chat also did make up a good point, though. The one problematic part of your hand here is that you could be up against ace queen here, Chad, too.
Right.
Now, I don't know if ace queen, but here's the thing about ace queen. I would be shocked if ace queen ever shoves here. So you could be up against like a stop raise on turn, like where the guy goes 120 and then he just checks back river. I would be literally shocked to see an all-in shove after you call turn here. If the guy bets 260. The funny thing is he probably should. Well, first of all, I mean, you're talking about fundamental. I mean, it should be a squeeze pre-flop with ace queen. But as I always try to talk about in Crush Live Poker, against this action, if you're not really checking many overpairs on the flop because you check the flop and we're not really scared of aces and kings, and somehow we had ace queen and we're the cutoff and you bet and we raised you and you called, I would shove ace queen. But you're not going to see that at this level, though. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to see that at this level. So this is an interesting one, right? Because nothing's really changed, right? We called getting turn pot odds here. Now, are there some draws, some combo draws that might have raised that feel like they just have to go with it? What would those be? There'd be what, like 9, 10 of spades here? I tend to think that a lot of ace highs, for whatever reason, don't raise off combo draws. Like if you had ace 10 of spades, and then a lot of times they might just check behind thinking they have a sliver of showdown value. So this is the great quandary of low stakes poker, because this guy, if we don't give him queen jack because of the check on the flop, he's really, really repping a very, very thin value range of pocket deuces and pocket fours. Could you throw in maybe 1-5-3 of spades that checks back the flop? Maybe something like that here too.
I couldn't think of much that he's, on this run out. I just thought, there's not that much he can have unless he was really slow playing. And I thought, with a missed flush draw or whatever, he could certainly do this. So I did end up, I thought about it for a little while, and then I thought, to me, it's sort of bricked out. So I think I have to call.
Now, could he have up and down queens up? That's another good one too, like a queen 4, queen deuce, iron type of hand. Those are hands that people might play at this level too.
It's possible, although, a raise to, it's certainly possible. Yeah, if it's suited, I guess a queen 4 or something could happen. I just thought there wasn't a lot of 2-pair out there. Now,
if you play at this level also too, Chad, before you give us the reveal, would you acknowledge that this is somewhat of a player-dependent scenario too, basically at the shove at the end? I mean, I think going back to my heyday at the low stakes, there are just some guys that just don't bluff, right? Or especially not all in, right?
Well, and I would say even earlier, like the raise itself, I would say is like so player dependent. You know, if I didn't know this guy at all, he was completely unknown to me.
Hmm.
But if I did know the person, I would probably know right away whether I should fold to that raise on the turn or
If he
whether I
was like a
should.
reg in your pool or something like that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I know which guys are capable of raising and shoving at the end when they miss, and I know which guys are would never ever do this without the nuts,
Mm.
and so it was just too bad I didn't ever like I'd never seen this guy before.
So you're trying to go back to baseline here. Walker Gibson, the live chat says against an unknown. Against an unknown. I'm folding. What did you end up doing?
I ended up calling.
Okay.
I just thought so many draws worked out between gut shots and flush draws and that I didn't like it, but I looked at the pot odds and I just closed my eyes
Close
and
your eyes
called.
and call. And what's the reveal?
Reveal his cutoff showed 5 of clubs, 3 of clubs.
Oh, so interesting. So he's got a straight. He actually has the nuts. But what's interesting here is I was expecting if you had said he was going to have 5-3, I'd be like, okay, he's got 5-3 of spades 95% of the time because this is an odd line at the low stakes. And the reason why I say this is because it's the delayed semi bluff here. Because he chose not to bet the flop when it got checked to him with open ended, which I would think would get bet off quite a bit here. And if it wasn't, I would have thought that only 5-3 of spades would raise turn. So that's a very, very interesting one where he waited on the come on the turn for the overcard too, right? I mean,
Right.
it's one thing if let's say the turn is like an 8, like it doesn't, change the texture of top pair, and then you check again and the guy in the middle bets, and then he raises the guy in the middle because he doesn't think he's got a jack, right? Because he checked behind on the flop. But here he's raising you when you check the flop, and on the turn, you can have Queen X here. I mean, would he have done the same thing if a king came? It's quite interesting.
Right. Yeah. So, and it's such a rare play too, like at my level, like at the 1-2 level here for someone to take this line is like, it's pretty rare. So I wasn't expecting it. Like normally alarm bells would go off, like any player I know, like if they're raising or check raising and stuff like that, like it's a pretty good indication that you want to fold. But this guy being unknown, I just wasn't sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks as always for the call. It's a good one, Chad. Appreciate it.